We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Wednesday, March 26th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and great to have you with us on News Generation. Joining us today is Park Ki-yoon.
Thanks for having me. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. And Cheska Dainok.
Happy Wednesday, everyone!
Happy
Woohoo!
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Now both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So as usual, we're going to begin with our keyword news. Today's keyword is yellow dust. Now it's been a harsh start to spring here in South Korea, with the country facing extreme weather conditions, including unusually high temperatures, powerful winds, and a thick blanket of yellow dust. On Tuesday, which was yesterday, skies across much of the nation were clouded with both fine dust and yellow dust, and those conditions are expected to continue today, taking a toll on public health and daily life. A yellow dust watch has been issued for Daejeon City and Jeollabuk-do Province. Now, this is issued when the average hourly concentration of fine particulate matter exceeds 300 micrograms per cubic meter for 2 hours or more. So for our viewers who are watching from abroad, how severe would you say fine dust and yellow dust levels are in South Korea during this time of year? Are you noticing their effects? I'm pretty sure you will. And do you have any go-to tips to stay healthy throughout the season?
You know, you mentioned that we had a very strong wind. We've been having a lot of fine dust that's been covering the sky.
Very disastrous weather conditions.
Exactly. I mean, it's supposed to be spring. We're supposed to see a lot of sun, have a little, nice ray of sunshine. But I was actually in Yeoju, so I was outside of Seoul this weekend. And it was like a countryside, with the rice patches. And I was actually expecting to see like a breath of fresh air.
And clear skies.
Right. But to my surprise, the fine dust was so thick, I could only see like the shadow of the mountains from afar. And I was a bit shocked because if we're living in Seoul, we kind of expect it to be that way. But when it was outside of Seoul and still seeing the cloud and the dust that way, I was a bit concerned about how serious it was getting. And for safety tips, I think the best way is to wear a mask. I mean, we have our, people in the office who are wearing masks as well.
Even indoors, right?
Even indoors, right? But if it's too suffocating, then at least hydrate and try to have air filters as well. But I think that's about the only tip that we can recommend at this point, yeah.
So hydration, air filters, and also don't forget to wear masks.
Mask if needed, yeah.
What do you think, you?
Yesterday, I tried not to go outside, but I actually had to walk around 10 minutes to see someone. And I could actually feel my eyes sting and even had debris go into my eyes. And it was really irritating. I even had the protective mask on, like the KF94 mask. And it still felt very suffocating, and I didn't feel very protected, even with a mask on. And I guess for any tips, staying indoors would be the best option. But if you do have to go outside, obviously wear a mask. And if you come back home, wash your hands, face immediately, preferably a shower if you can. And of course, always stay hydrated. And I don't know, just pray for clearer skies to come in the future. I think severe weather is taking a big toll on a lot of Korean citizens. I remember back in COVID-19, the skies were so clear, blue, because all the factories were shut down.
Yeah, and people started moving less.
Exactly. And I thought, maybe it's the humans who are causing all this pollution. But I think do stay hydrated and try to stay indoors if you can.
Right. And meanwhile, bad air quality is in the forecast here in South Korea, but we have a rain forecast tomorrow, so hopefully things will get better. And that was our keyword news for this Wednesday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day. Wednesday is when we dive into lifestyle trends shaping the younger generation. Take a look at the screen to find out more. When it comes to understanding how we live, nothing paints a clearer picture than our living expenses. How much we spend each month on food, housing, transportation, bills, and the occasional splurge. Today on NewsGen, we're breaking down the cost of everyday life, especially for young people in Korea. So we're going to start our show with the latest figures, and we'll focus on single-person households since recent data from Statistics Korea shows that over a third of people living alone are in their 20s and 30s. So Kyung, could you please walk us through the numbers? What are young Koreans spending most of their money on?
Sure. As of last year, the average monthly living expenses for a single-person household were around 2.8 million won, roughly $1,900. For two-person households, the average was 4.7 million won, roughly $3,200. And for three-person households, it was 5.9 million won, approximately $4,000. Now, looking into the detailed breakdown of expenses for single-person households, housing costs ranked the highest, followed by food expenses and dining out, which I can very much relate to. And for now, let's take a look at the screen for more details. According to a survey by the Federation of Korean Trade Union, housing rent costs around $660, followed by $238 in groceries, and then followed by dining out and entertainment and culture. Now, these account for over 80% of the total expenses, leaving close to no room to save up money or to even make investments on the side. So for a lot of single-person households, especially young people, which I guess they're not there yet financially, making a lot of money for now. So most of their expenses are going into housing.
Necessities.
Eating out and just food necessities. And I think I can feel that pain as well. No matter how much money you make, like 80% of it just diminishes on a monthly basis, leaving you like not much to save up. So I think this is the reality for a lot of young people in Korea right now.
Then this naturally leads to my next question. So does this match how your monthly spending looks like as well?
I think I saw the pain in Kiyo's eyes, so I think it matches.
Getting teary now.
It's not the fine dust, right?
No, a bit of both actually.
A bit of both, yeah.
Luckily, my main source of expense is not in housing, only because I'm paying back interest of my mortgage loan, not monthly rent. But my second, third, and fourth expenses match directly. I am a big foodie, so when I decide to dine out, as you can see, that happened last week. I will not hold back on spending by going to many 맛집s, which is a trending popular restaurant. But when I do have time, instead of ordering or substituting a meal with a snack, I would cook at home. Trying to use healthy, natural ingredients like.
Are those dishes what
they're
you
all
cooked?
homemade, made by myself, for myself.
For yourself,
Yeah, that was kimchi jjigae that I made a few days ago with side dishes as well. And in terms of my hobby, it's actually golf, screen golf actually, because golf is considered a luxury sport here in Korea to actually go outdoors into a proper golf course. So I tend to spend quite a lot of my money on screen golf.
Food and screen golf?
Food and screen golf.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing your experience and
My
also
pleasure.
those pictures and footages.
Look really good. Yeah.
What about you, Jessica?
For today's topic, I actually went back to my spending account and did a little bit of like stats to see where my biggest spending was. And I definitely fall into the stat that Ki-hoon showcased. Most of my spending goes to housing because unfortunately I am paying rent, the high rent living in the main central part of Seoul, and also like insurance and other things. And yes, food does come up second, but not just dining experiences, but ordering groceries, whether it be going to cafes. So a lot of social life, I think, for MZers take place at eating.
Right.
So for that reason, sometimes I pay for meals, sometimes I pay for cafes. So those are my heavy spending category. And then the next was like clothes and amenities. But I think as Ki-hoon mentioned, when it comes to single household, food does play a very important part, as we'll talk about a little bit later on. So I think housing and food was definitely right up there in my biggest chunk of spending. But for me, also as someone who does her own business, a lot of it goes to business trips and funding projects. So that's a lot of big spending that kind of goes in. That's may be a little bit special when it comes to my own spending habits.
I see. So we're now going to talk about food because based on what our panelists mentioned and the data that Ki-hoon showed, single-person households tend to spend more on eating out compared to others. So I want to ask you, can you relate? I think you already gave the answer, but could you elaborate a bit more?
I think it only makes sense as people in general don't really want to eat alone because eating is it's an experience, with other people. But it has become more common as we see increase in single-person households. So if you had friends who lived alone as well, live close by, you would actually just call them and say, hey, let's have lunch, or let's have dinner. And it doesn't only end there. Like if you like drinking, it might lead on to like a second round. But if you don't drink, you'll probably end up having coffee at a cafe, and that would amount to actually end up spending more than you would actually do at home or ordering it or just cooking yourself. So I think that could be one of the main reasons why single-person households end up spending a lot of money on food because they tend to kind of eat out.
Yeah, definitely. Then Jessica, what could be some other reasons why dining out is such a big part of our generation's paycheck?
I think there are two interesting components. I think the first is our generation treats eating as an entertainment.
Oh yeah, it's not just eating itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think any one of us need to eat for survival because we have overabundance.
We kind of eat for pleasure, right?
Exactly, right? I was talking to my dad and it was kind of touching and also sad, but he was saying, because I was asking him like, hey dad, do you want to, do omakase and whatnot? He was like, what is that? And he said, when he was growing up, my best treat was like a sweet potato because he didn't have much to eat. So I think our generation, myself included, we love fine dining, we love experience, and we become, kind of selective and almost picky when it comes to choosing what we want to consume.
Right.
So in that way, we definitely spend a lot more money, time, and attention on consumption on food. And also social media plays a big part. I'm sure all three of us have scrolled through our algorithm and saw like great restaurants and like food pictures that keep coming up that are enticing people. So not only are people sharing, but also showcasing these dining experiences. The second part, which is kind of my personal opinion, but I think is really relevant because I personally experience it too. When you live alone in a city like Seoul, you come back home from a really hard day, food has sort of served as a comfort.
Yeah, like a reward.
Exactly, and you want to compensate yourself for the hard and rough day that you had. And because it's so easy to order and buy food these days, I think a lot of single households choose food as the option, the easy option to compensate for that void that we feel as a modern generation people.
Maybe that's the reason why it takes us like a lot of time to even pick what we want to eat.
Exactly, because
There's so many to choose from.
it's not that we don't want to eat. It's more like, what do I really want to eat that will make me the happiest?
Yeah. Right. So we're now also going to talk about housing costs because they took the biggest slice of the pie, accounting for nearly 1/3 of total monthly expenses on the data that we showed earlier. So what do you think this says about the financial burden that many young people face today? Starting with you, Cheska.
Yeah, I definitely can agree because I fall into the category of MZers who are living alone. And I told you earlier that the biggest portion of my spending is on rent. And just to give you the stats, even though the Korean living standard is, considering the Korean living standard is lower compared to like United States, the average rent for people who are living around the university area could go from, I would say, $750 to about $1,200, which is a lot if you look at the average of the rent here in Seoul, Korea, which is around 500 to, I would say, 600. So that is a lot higher than the average. And usually when you live as a single person, you have to pay rent to live in South Korea because you can't afford a huge deposit or a mortgage. So a lot of the chunk every month has to go through rent. So that's definitely a big toll on a lot of people's spending.
And Kyun, I heard that there are some support systems that are being rolled out to help these young people, right?
Yes, there are currently various policies in place to support housing for young people. These include options like 행복주택, which is affordable housing offered at much lower prices than the market rate. There is long-term rental housing and programs that provide rental deposits at low interest rates. And by making good use of these policies, it is kind of possible to save significantly on housing costs, but you do really have to do your research. And also, there are a lot of qualifications that you need to meet. So you really need to look into it deeper and have a better understanding of whether you're actually capable of receiving these benefits in terms of housing.
So based on our discussion until now, it seems that housing and food take up the biggest portion when it comes to looking at the monthly spending or living costs of young people. So now to hear what our viewers had to say, we ran a poll on our Arirang YouTube channel asking which category eats up most of your monthly expenses. The 4 options were food, housing, transportation, and leisure. If we look at the results, 58% chose housing, followed by food at 30%, leisure at 8%, and transportation at 4%. So we're now going to take a look at 3 comments. Our first comment for this Wednesday is by Roddy Russell Jr. 93. I live in Yeoksamdong, Seoul, which is Gangnam-gu district, south of Seoul. Rent eats up more than half of my monthly salary. Jax Parpa ING3217, jewelry and clothes. No, in fact, it's housing and food. CKATKF26 says definitely housing, not only monthly mortgage or rent payments, but also maintenance costs and bills. So it seems that housing is indeed taking a toll on many young people around the world as well. So after the break, we'll be joined by Gen Z from Indonesia to compare living costs in Korea and other parts of the world. We'll be right back.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang.News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Today we're joined by Grazia Citranarswari, an Indonesian Gen Z living in Korea. Welcome back to the show, Grazia.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
So Grazia, starting off, you've lived in both Korea and Indonesia. So would you say that the cost of living is higher here in Korea or in Indonesia?
To compare, I think it is safe to say that the living cost is higher in Korea than back home.
Then could you please elaborate more on why you felt that way?
I think if I want to compare it like apple to apple, the amount of I think the amount of money that I pay for like housing is totally different. Maybe because I live in my parents' house still, but hearing from my friends back home also, like here I spend almost half of my monthly income for like housing itself, but back home people my age, they tend to still have spare for like saving and then investment that it's probably harder to do here.
Right. What do you find reasonably priced in Korea, and what feels overly expensive compared to Indonesia, and what stood out to you the most?
I think what stood out for me the most is transportation expense, because here, to be fair, the public transportation in Korea is so convenient and it's so accessible everywhere, and the amount that I pay for transportation per month is more or less affordable. Like for me, it's worth it to pay that amount of money. But what is the most expensive, as I said before, is housing, and I do agree with food though, because for like a single household here in Korea, either you cook at home or you eat outside, the cost doesn't really makes a huge difference.
Then have you ever heard of like financial support programs for people living in Seoul? And if so, have you ever tried or applied for them?
I do, yeah, actually. I heard for some of my friends, but some of my Korean friends, so they have like, I think, program to support young people for living expenses and housing, especially the one who's looking for jobs. But to be fair, I haven't tried them out because I don't know if that is accessible for foreigners.
I think that information, the accessibility of that information is something that we should work on. All right, Grazia, thank you so much for your time today and sharing your experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so ending off, with inflation and rising prices, managing your budget can feel like walking on a tightrope. So ending off our show today, any money-saving hacks that you'd like to share with our viewers?
The first one I would like to share is learning to cook for yourself at home.
That's
As you
very
saw
important.
from some of the pictures that I shared. I used to be a real bad cook. I didn't
Really?
know,
I can't imagine that.
I couldn't know. I didn't even know where to start. So I actually learned from my grandma when I was living with her. And I was always used to be next to her asking, oh, what's that? What do you put in? How do you make this? How do you make that? And when I moved in with my brother, I realized I was spending so much money just ordering in food. Yeah. And I told my brother, hey, I'm going to start cooking. You
better eat
it. You better eat it. And at first he was like, you know what, let's just order food. Because I was so terrible.
This is not something that you give to people, yeah?
I don't. It's not. Yeah. It was torture actually for him. But then I somehow got the hang of it because through a lot of trial and error. And now I'm actually all right. I'm a decent cook.
That's just great.
I've actually given to some of my friends and I asked for their opinions and they were like, I'll be very honest with you, it's actually quite nice.
Oh.
It's edible.
Is it edible?
And another perk is that you actually know what you put in your food. So you can choose to obviously manage your nutrition as well using fresh new ingredients that you get from groceries. And another tip would be within my family members, we actually made a bank account and every month we would put in the same amount.
Oh, for living expenses?
No, just on the side. So it's been almost 3 years now and it's been piled up to almost like 10 million won. And so what we're doing is whoever needs emergency money, we can always use it, take it out.
That's such a great idea.
The main reason was for us to perhaps like go on a trip overseas or even when we go golf outside the screen golf, not indoors, outdoors, would use it on that. So I think if you have like a separate bank account, like savings account pretty
Yes.
much, and if you do it with other friends, close friends, or even family members, you feel obliged to actually put in the money. Because if you do it by yourself, you kind of lose interest. You're like, oh, I need this money right now.
Right, exactly.
But if you have different kind of obligations and like where you have to meet promises, you tend to just, you have to put it in regardless of how much money you have right now. So that's another option you can do because it tends to pile up over time, and then you'll be surprised at how much money you actually have in the account after a few months, and then you can actually use it to purchase big things, or of course like during emergency cases.
So building habits that help you save money, which is cooking at home and also coming up with a plan that actually makes you save money, right?
Exactly.
Like a bank account. What do you suggest, Jessica?
I mean, I think family savings account is a great idea.
Yeah, I never thought of it, but that's such a good idea.
Yeah, and because it's a family, you can be a little bit, I guess, more aggressive and be like, put in the money. You can't do that to your friends. I think that's a great tip. For me, what I started doing, and I do want to continue, is I keep a financial journal. So instead of like a ledger or like a bank finance book, what you do is after 2 weeks or after a month, you go back to your spending, and then on the side you write how that spending made you feel or what made you do that purchase at that time. And then you kind of go through your thought process of what each purchase made you do or what it gave you, and then next time you're spending, you automatically build in the psychological habit of thinking about, is this coffee going to really improve my day?
It kind of prevents you from splurging, right?
Yeah, splurging, and also being actually conscious of spending. Because now, because we use credit cards and like wire transfer, it's so quick to make purchases. But even the little spending that you make, if you start thinking about why you're making these purchases behind it, I think you can become a little bit more sensible. And I should start doing that.
It's always the why that matters.
It's why, yeah.
What
Because
sorry.
we talked about the food consumption, right? A lot of the times we're not eating for survival anymore. We're eating for like entertainment or enjoyment or sometimes loneliness. So when we know why we're spending a lot of money, then we can sort of backtrack and see how to cut our spending. Yeah.
Such a great idea.
What about you, Eugene?
Yeah. Do you have any tips?
Well, currently I live with my parents, so my parents are in charge of paying for the living cost, so I feel a bit guilty, but I think that what I can help is starting with really basic stuff. For example, taking a shorter shower. And we kind of talked about this before we came on air, but there is actually a shower booth at the basement floor of our company, so maybe taking showers, just shorter showers, not at home, but other places.
Does that mean you're going to start taking shower at Arirang?
I'll take that into consideration because I just found that out today. So.
To save on water bills and the environment,
Which leads to reduced living costs,
Absolutely,
hopefully.
absolutely.
And that's all we have for today, but we will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks to Park Ki-yoon.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, and Cheska Dain-hong.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you.
Thank you, and to our viewers, thank you for staying with us and hope to see you back here tomorrow. We are
News Generation.